All right, welcome. Today, we're diving into a really wild economic idea, something called the data valuation architecture. It's from a document called The Architecture of Sovereign Will, and honestly, it could completely flip how we think about money on its head. So yeah, let's get right into it.
So, before we get into all the technical stuff, let's just start with a really big question. What if money wasn't just neutral? Something you use to buy stuff. What if every single dollar had a specific, unchangeable mission hardwired right into it? Just keep that question in the back of your mind as we go through this.
To really wrap our heads around this whole thing, we're going to break it down into 4 parts. First, we'll get into the philosophy of it all, the big difference between the will and the want. Then, we'll look at the new kind of economic engine this philosophy creates. After that, we'll explore this amazing idea of capital with a conscience. And finally, we'll look at the system's ultimate defense plan, something they call the unbeatable commodity.
Okay, so first things first, let's talk about the core philosophy. Because before we can understand how any of this works, we really need to get the why. And it all comes down to the battle between 2 very different ideas.
And this is the absolute heart of the distinction. On one side, you've got querer, which basically means the want. Think of this as that reactive gut impulse. It's the engine of our current financial system, right? But on the other side, there's vantage, or the will. And this is totally different. It's not an impulse. It's a focused, deliberate, intentional direction. This system doesn't see that as a feeling. It sees it as a powerful, sovereign asset.
So, this whole system is built to actually measure and value the will. And the basic unit for that is called the FGVD, which stands for deliberate will vector. You can kind of think of it as a way to quantify the value of a specific focus intention, totally separate from the whims of market supply and demand. This right here is the fundamental building block for everything else.
Okay, so the philosophy is pretty cool. But how do you turn that into an actual working economic engine? Let's take a look under the hood of this data valuation architecture.
The engine running this whole show is called the cycloeconomic 4G3WAI. Now, I know, that sounds super complicated, but trust me, at its core, it's a pretty straightforward 3-step cycle. And its entire purpose is to create money that's stable and has a clear mission from the second it's born.
So here's how it works. Step 1 is emission. This is where new capital gets created, but, and this is key, unlike our system, it's already backed by active savings data. Step 2 is anchoring. To keep things stable and avoid crazy swings, that new capital gets locked into a fixed rate. And finally, step 3, control. In this world, a central bank's role is super limited. They're basically just there for disinfection or cleanup. The real control always stays with the original intent of the person who created the value.
And this is a really fundamental difference. The source material calls traditional money creation hollow emission, basically money created out of nothing. But in this system, that never happens. Capital is backed by real, hard data from the very beginning, at a 10-to-1 ratio. So it has actual, tangible value from the moment it comes into existence.
Now, this brings us to what is maybe the most mind-bending part of this whole idea. How do you actually give money a mission? How do you imprint it with a purpose? Well, this is where we get into the idea of giving capital a conscience.
The technical term for this process is Tag-Vaporization. Yeah, it's a mouthful, but all it means is the ability to imprint a Tag-Destino, or a destination tag, directly onto the money itself. The source even calls this a spiritual utility. Basically, you're giving your money its marching orders from day one.
The implications of this are just huge. It means the money becomes captive. But it's not captive to a bank or a government or an investment firm. It's captive to its original purpose. It can only be used for the mission it was created for, which completely shields it from the wild speculative whims of the market.
So you might be wondering, okay, how would a normal person even use this? Well, the document actually lays out the tech for it. The whole system's backend would run on something called the G@B cloud service, and you, the user, would interact with it through a simple PSS app. So that's the bridge from all this heavy theory to a practical, usable system.
But this whole system isn't some lawless Wild West. It has built-in ethical guardrails. It's all governed by what's called the matrix de tags, a matrix that sets 4 core, non-negotiable principles. They are vita, gnosis, ethos, and spirit. Now, the source doesn't get into the nitty-gritty, but we can guess vita is about life, gnosis about knowledge, ethos about morality, and spirit, a higher purpose. These are basically the 10 commandments for all money in this entire ecosystem.
So,
You've got this new money, this new engine, this built-in conscience. But what happens when the old financial world, inevitably pushes back? That brings us to our final piece of the puzzle, the system's ultimate defense mechanism.
And that defense is called the time-owned market, or TOM. It's described as an absolute fortress designed to be completely rejection-proof by traditional finance. And what is this fortress built on? It's built on the one asset that every single person owns, that can never be created out of thin air and can never be counterfeited: our time. The source material has this incredible, almost poetic way of describing it. It says, the system is based on the people's time as the commodity that God and the Neapolitan know to be invincible. It's just a powerful way to frame time, not just as a resource, but as the ultimate, unbeatable, untouchable asset.
And that, right there, is what brings this whole massive, complex architecture back down to something deeply personal for every single one of us. It's a vision for a world where value is tied to our deepest intentions and secured by our most precious resource. So the final question it leaves us with is one for all of us to think about. If time truly is the ultimate asset, how are you investing yours?